just finds you well, and you're okay, and that it helps in any way that you need. Okay, let's continue. Sugarcane. Marilyn was initially reluctant to accept the part of sugarcane, believing it ridiculous that her character should never discover that the girls, played by Curtis and Lemon, were actually men. But she relented after Miller convinced her of the quality of the script. And that relates back to Some Like a Hot Film. Although she was convinced that Marilyn was perfect for the role, director Billy Wilder had also some misgivings about working with her again, having directed her in The 7-Year Itch and found her lateness and inability to remember her lines exasperating at times. There were problems that Wilder would have to endure again during the production of Some Like It Hot, but once filming was over, Marilyn's performance convinced him that he had made the right decision. Too Old and Too Rich. Director Billy Wilder talks to Marilyn on the set of Some Like It Hot. After a promising start, Marilyn was soon back to her old ways, and if anything, Wilder found her even more difficult to work with than he had done before, explaining he was now too old and too rich to want to work with her again. Marilyn's intake of prescription drugs had increased dramatically by this time, and she was more unreliable than ever. Marilyn, with Tony Curtis in a scene from Some Like It Hot. Curtis and Lemon also found it difficult to work with Marilyn at points. They felt a pressure to be good in every take, no matter how many times the scene was shot, because Billy Wilder would be forced to use the versions in which Marilyn had performed well. Marilyn became pregnant again during the filming of Some Like It Hot, but in December 1958 she miscarried this baby too, and avoided the attention of the press while she recovered. However, in March 1959, she attended the New York premiere of the film with Arthur Miller, looking happy and well. Marilyn in a publicity shot taken by photographer Frank Powolny for 20th Century Fox. This photograph was one in the same scenes series, which was later immortalised as a screen print by the artist Andy Warhol. It's a wrap. Wrapped up against the cold, Marilyn arrives at LaGuardia Airport on her way to Chicago premiere of Some Like It Hot. Despite all the problems experienced during the filming, including costing the production over $200,000 due to her illness and lateness, the film was to prove a massive critical and financial success. As one of the highest grossing films of 1959, Some Like It Hot also set a long-standing box office record for comedy and continues to be regarded as one of Marilyn's best films. In 1959, on account of her endometriosis, which had resulted in a number of ectopic pregnancies and miscarriages, Marilyn was to undergo gynecological surgery, which it was hoped would finally allow her to have a baby. She was accompanied to the hospital by her husband, Arthur Miller. Time and Tide. Marilyn meets the author the home of her writer friend Carson McCullers. Around this time, Marilyn was due to begin work on Time and Tide, based on the novels by the author William Bradford, but Fox accidentally allowed their filming schedule to lapse, failing to realise that Marilyn would no longer be obliged to work on the picture, and that they would still have to pay her, as she had additionally. Marilyn should then owe the studio one less film. Marilyn looked happy and hopeful as she left New York's Lenox Hill Hospital after her operation. But tragically, she would never successfully carry a baby to term. An early arrival. Flying in from New York, Marilyn arrived uncharacteristically early for a luncheon at 20th Century Fox Studios in Hollywood, which was being held in honor of the visiting Russian leader, Nikita Khrushchev. Marilyn's interest in the country stemmed from the fact that she had been learning the act according to the methods of the Soviet actor and director Konstantin Stanislavski. Having had to concede defeat over the Time and Tide project, by now Fox had lined up a new film for Marilyn to begin working on. Originally titled The Billionaire, the movie would ultimately be released as Let's Make Love, but before filming began, the venture was beset by difficulties, including the loss of co-star Gregory Peck. Shooting was also delayed as Marilyn became increasingly dependent on alcohol and prescription drugs. She was also unhappy with the original script, and although he was not credited for the work, Arthur Miller was brought in to rewrite extensively before shooting could commence. Let's Make Love. Essentially a comedy of errors, Let's Make Love centres around a case of mistaken identity which occurs during the production of the satirical show about the life of a billionaire. Jean-Marc Clement. Hearing about the show, Clement arrives at a rehearsal in New York's Greenwich Village, and with the producers believing that he's a lookalike, he's promptly cast in the lead, only to fall for his blonde co-star, Amanda Dell. Marilyn played, of course, Amanda, whilst Gregory Peck had now been replaced by the French actor and sex symbol Yves Montand. Cocktails and chemistry. Marilyn with Frankie Vaughan and Yves Montand, her co-stars in Let's Make Love. A cocktail party had to welcome Montand to Hollywood and to introduce him to the American press. Montand, who was touring the US with a one-man show, had been suggested for the role of Jean-Marc Clement by Marilyn's husband Arthur Miller, and Marilyn and Miller soon became good friends with Montand and his wife Simone Signori. Marilyn and Montand at the cocktail party. There was an immediate chemistry between them, which was perhaps partly fueled by Montand's superficial resemblance to Marilyn's former husband Joe DiMaggio. Despite the friendship that had developed between the two couples, when Miller left for New York to continue writing and Signore returned to France, Marilyn and Montand would become embroiled in a passionate affair. Neither of them expected to be the start of a lasting psychiatrist Dr. Ralph Greenson on a regular basis, and in addition to sessions of psychotherapy, Greenson was prescribing various drugs as part of Marilyn's treatment, including tranquilizers and barbiturates. However, Marilyn was continuing to combine her medication with alcohol, and throughout the filming of Let's Make Love, her problems with lateness and her failure to remember the script were more apparent than ever. In addition, Marilyn was beginning to appear tired and seemed to be losing the magic sparkle that she had somehow always managed to produce. Soon after work, she began on Let's Make Love. Filming was halted for several months by a strike instigated by actors and supported by the Writers Guild. In addition to costing the production valuable time and money, by the time filming recommenced, Marilyn had apparently gained weight, which required various on-set adjustments to her costumes. Although Let's Make Love did not prove to be a major success, it was memorable for Marilyn's rendition of Cole Porter's My Heart Belongs to Daddy. Marilyn with co-star Yves Montand in a scene from Let's Make Love. Unlike his character in the film, Montand was actually a talented singer and dancer, but he was also known for his dramatic roles and had appeared in the Miller's play The Crucible in his native France. Marilyn poses for photographers as she celebrates the receipt of a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Comedy, which was presented for her performance in Some Like It Hot. Almost as soon as filming had finished on Let's Make Love, Marilyn and Arthur Miller flew to Nevada to begin location shooting for The Misfits. Miller had written the screenplay as a gift for Marilyn, but by now the couple were hardly communicating, and Marilyn believed that her husband was merely attempting to further his own career with the movie. She is pictured here with various cast and crew members including Miller, Montgomery Clift, Clark Gable and director John Huston. Marilyn was also disappointed with her character Rosalind, feeling that Miller had simply created her as a superficial and damaged version of herself. And yet he was so exposing aspects of Marilyn's personal life before the camera and the public. Exhausted again. Marilyn had never enjoyed jumping from one film to another without time to rest and prepare herself, and with hardly a break between this project and her last, the experience was always likely to be a difficult one. However, on set, tensions were intensified by the fact that filming was taking place in the sweltering summer heat in the Nevada desert, as well as by Marilyn's increasing dependency on drugs and alcohol. She was evidently physically and mentally exhausted by the whole process, and midway through the shoot, Marilyn had to be hospitalized for several days. The last movie. After 10 days at the Westside Hospital in LA, Marilyn returned to Nevada to complete work on The Misfits, which would last for about another month. She is pictured in a scene from the film with her co-star Clark Gable. this would be the last movie. Miller and Marilyn in discussion with director John Huston. Miller agonised over the film, hoping that the material would rival that of his best plays, but he could not reconcile this with his belief that Hollywood movies were essentially a lower art form. A warm relationship. Despite all of the on-set difficulties, Marilyn and her co-star Clark Gable got on well during filming, but when Gable suffered a heart attack the day after the movie was finished and sadly passed away less than 2 weeks later, certain sections of the public and press turned on Marilyn and blamed her for his death. It was suggested that Marilyn had caused Gable undue stress. While she admitted to feeling guilty for having kept him waiting on set so many times, many of her supporters felt that she was being made a scapegoat, not just for his death, but for all the movie's production problems. Although The Misfits has become renowned for its troubled production and was undoubtedly a tough time for all those involved, both Gable and Marilyn gave brilliant performances. Throughout the filming of The Misfits, Marilyn and Miller stayed in separate accommodation, and shortly after Marilyn's return from hospital, the couple announced that they had separated. It was rumoured that Miller had begun an affair with photographer Inga Morath whilst on set, and just a week after filming concluded in early November, Marilyn and Miller revealed their plans to divorce. Alone again. After completing The Misfits in the late 1960, Marilyn returned to New York, where, alone on Christmas Eve, she was to receive a bouquet of flowers from her former husband, Joe DiMaggio, which would lead to a rekindling of their friendship. In January 1961, she was divorced from Arthur Miller in Mexico, and that same month, Misfits opened to critical acclaim. Marilyn attended a Broadway premiere of the movie with Montgomery Clift, who also starred in the film, and was careful to avoid Miller, who was also in attendance. Marilyn, looking somewhat less glamorous than usual and seemingly obvious to the camera, by now her lifestyle was beginning to take its toll, and after her third failed marriage, Marilyn was sinking into a depression. Joe to the rescue. In February 1961, at the suggestion of Dr. Chris, her analyst, Marilyn admitted herself to the Payne Whitney Clinic, seemingly unaware that it was a psychiatric hospital. Upon realising, Marilyn became highly distressed and was subsequently restrained and sedated. 3 days later, Joe DiMaggio arranged for her to be transferred to the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center, and 3 weeks later, she left to spend time relaxing with Joe in Florida. Soon afterwards, Marilyn was back in hospital for an operation to remove her gallbladder. Towards the end of 1961, Marilyn decided to return to LA, where she was soon enjoying the social swirl of Hollywood parties once more, and was to become romantically involved with Robert Kennedy. After brief dalliances with Frank Sinatra, and reportedly also with Robert's brother, President JFK, famously sing Happy Birthday the following year. Meanwhile, Marilyn bought a new apartment in Brentwood, California, which she set about furnishing, and in early 1962 she was presented with the Golden Globe by Rock Hudson as the world's favourite film star of 1961. Just weeks later, Marilyn began work on her next movie for Fox, Something's Got to Give, with co-star Dean Martin and director George Cukor. But despite appearing in good physical shape, Marilyn was now seeing her new psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, once or even twice a day, and she seemed incapable of functioning without his support and the drugs he was prescribing. As a result, Fox eventually fired Marilyn from the movie, but following high-profile photo shoots for Life, Vogue and Cosmopolitan magazines, which included some sensational nude shots, the studio recognised and agreed to rehire her on the 1st of August. Tragically, however, Marilyn was never to return to the set.